The Holy Gospel according to Luke, the 6th chapter. Jesus said, "But I say to you that listen, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who abuse you. If anyone strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from anyone who takes away your coat, do not withhold even your shirt. Give to everyone who begs from you, and if anyone takes away your goods, do not ask for them again. Do to others as you would have them do to you. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. If you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners do the same. If you lend to those from whom you hope to receive, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners to receive as much again. But love your enemies, do good, and lend, expecting nothing in return. Your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High, for He is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap, for the measure you give will be the measure you get back. The Gospel of the Lord. So one day, when I was in my early teens, I was homesick from school with the flu. And as kids in those days tended to do, I was recuperating on the couch and I was flipping through channels on daytime TV trying to find something that I could stand to watch. And I ended up on some generic crime drama. It was all pretty predictable, including the bad guy who did something despicable and was not remorseful about it. One of the main characters then said the line, "I'm going to have indigestion for a week because I didn't hit that guy." 20 years later, that line is still with me because I thought it was funny, but also because I could relate to it. Loving our enemies can be extremely difficult. It can feel like too much to ask, and there can be a cost, even more than just indigestion. So what does it mean to love our enemies? Well, let's start with what it doesn't mean. The mercy and forgiveness that Jesus talks about here does not mean to never stand up for yourself and continue to let yourself be abused. Our natural instincts, though, are wired for two reactions when we sense danger or stress: fight or flight. And those can often seem like our only two options. But Jesus offers us a third way in the gospel today. This third way is subversive. It's countercultural, and it can be very difficult to implement. But it provides something that a fight or flight response does not. It breaks the cycle of violence and oppression. So turning the other cheek is one of those phrases that we hear so often that it has become a cliche. And Jesus often speaks in parables, and I'm going to reference a story later that has been a powerful metaphor for me. But it's important to remember the crowd that Jesus is speaking to in this gospel. These are people that are occupied by a global military superpower. It affects every aspect of their lives. Oppression is an everyday thing. And the examples that Jesus uses here to speak to them are literal for them, not metaphorical. So turning the other cheek is often misunderstood to mean that one should simply offer the other cheek to get hit some more. I wonder how many of us have heard oh, well, just turn the other cheek. It's okay. But what Jesus is saying here is actually much more profound than that. So at the time of this gospel reading, the social hierarchy was incredibly important for their society. And it is for ours too, but we kind of like to pretend that it's not. But their whole lives were based around it. So if a person with authority or a person higher up on the social order than you was to strike you, they would use the back of their right hand. The left hand was not used because it was considered unclean and for personal hygiene, and I'll let everyone use their imagination on that. So, to strike someone underneath you in the social order, you would use the back of your right hand. Now, if the person that you were striking turns the other cheek, you could not use the back of your right hand again because the angle would be too awkward. So then, if you wanted to strike them again, you'd either have to do an open-handed slap or a punch. Now, the thing is that in their society, an open-handed slap or a punch implied equality in the social order. So this would be a problem for the abuser, because then they would be admitting, if they hit them with an open-handed slap or a punch, that the person that they were striking was equal to them. And that would be against everything that their society was based on. So their only other option then is to stop hitting you. When we turn the other cheek, we are not saying, "You are free to hit me again as you please." Instead, what we are actually saying is, if you hit me again, it'll be as an equal, not someone beneath you. And now you have a choice to make. So it flips the whole power structure on its head. If someone merely strikes back against an authority or someone that has wronged them, the result is often negative, and it only furthers the cycle of violence. And if someone just rolls over and lets it happen to them, the violence is still unchecked and people are dehumanized. So the only way to break this circle is to turn the other cheek. It's not fight or flight, but a way of subverting expectations, of making sure everyone involved is seen as an equal human, whether we think they deserve it or not. It also extends mercy to the other person. It gives them a choice. It's the only response that allows all sides to grow and change. Otherwise, the fight just continues again and again. And Jesus then says, if someone takes your coat, give them your shirt as well. And people often interpret this as extended charity, but again, there's greater significance if we look at the history. So these people, again, are occupied by this global military superpower, and they're victims of unchecked taxation and theft. Tax collectors at this time could demand any amount that they wanted as tax, as long as they kicked it up higher on the food chain, the required amount of money. So as a result, many people were left with literally only the clothes on their backs. So this often consisted of a coat and a shirt, or what would be called a cloak and a tunic. So if someone took your cloak, the tunic was the only item of clothing left. So you see where Jesus is going with this? If someone takes your cloak and you give them your tunic, you're naked. In our society, this seems pretty extreme. Nakedness is seen as a shame on the person who's naked. But in this time, the shame of public nudity was not on the person that was nude, but on the person that witnessed it. So again, the power structure gets turned around. The person demanding the cloak would be shamed for viewing a naked person. And the person in authority is once again put in a difficult situation. Endure the shame or walk away. The oppressor is given a choice. In both of these situations, Jesus shows us how to stop our own dehumanization without also dehumanizing the other person. Instead, all are seen as humans, loved by God and equal. Like many good preachers, Jesus has 3 examples he uses here, and he defies expectations a third time. He says to lend money to someone expecting nothing in return. This is pretty clear, but I'm going to repeat it because I think as Americans, this is really a foreign concept. Lend money to someone expecting nothing in return. So this time, the listener is not the one being oppressed, but is instead the one that's in power. If you have money to lend, even a little bit, you are in a position of power over someone who has none. And again, the point is to show mercy, not only to those who have wronged you from a position of authority or who think that they're higher up on the social order than you, but also to those that you may consider beneath you. Jesus does not say to do these things to someone whom we think deserves it. That is never part of the equation. Grace does not care about what is deserved or not. If it did, it wouldn't be grace at all. Can you imagine what things would be like in our society if we all actually lived these things out literally, I think it would be unrecognizable to us. When Jesus died on the cross, he didn't go through a checklist like Santa Claus and decide who deserved redemption or not. That would have made it all worthless. But it all comes back to where power really lies. The person striking you does not have power over you. The person taking your coat does not have power over you. And the money you possess does not give you power over others. The real power is in mercy. Mercy empowers everyone involved. We can't control how people will react to it, but we can do our part to empower others, which in turn empowers ourselves. It's easy to forget that we too are recipients of mercy and grace. If we deny that of others, then we are turning our backs on what we claim we believe, and then there's no point in us being here this morning. I've always found great inspiration in a story. Stories in many different forms reveal to us things about ourselves and about the world that we wouldn't get to otherwise. I think that's one reason Jesus liked to use parables so much. The stories that resonate with me the most are the ones that deal with redemption. My family and I have recently been watching a TV show called The Book of Boba Fett, which is a spin-off story set in the Star Wars universe. In it, the main character, whose name is Boba, is coming back from a near-death experience. For most of his life up to that point, he was a cold-hearted bounty hunter whose only purpose in life was the next job and how much he got paid for it. He was a loner that discarded people easily. After facing death, he is rescued by a group of locals that eventually become his new adoptive family. This experience changes him, and he sees it as a second chance at life. As a result, as the story progresses, he ends up extending mercy to others that have come to harm him. Where in his old life, he would have had no second thoughts about striking them down and would have slept easily that night, he now lets them go. He gives them that choice about what happens next. So I was reading comments online from people who were confused by the change in Boba's character. And they were complaining that he had become too soft. Some of them had even said the character was ruined for them now. But what they didn't understand was that he was transformed by his redemptive experience, and he now sought to do the same for others. The overarching theme of the show is one of found family, of mercy, and of community. And in fact, a few of the enemies that Boba extends mercy to end up becoming his allies and part of his new family. Characters that were once trying to kill each other end up standing side by side together. I think this is a powerful metaphor for this gospel reading. When we extend mercy and grace, there can be changes in people that we can't predict and that would not happen otherwise. The philosophers have often used this gospel passage by Jesus to claim that this type of thinking is too idealistic and too weak. Nietzsche even used it as an argument against Christianity. But in fact, I think it's the opposite. The strength is in the mercy. It paves the way for real change. In the show, one of the characters even teases Boba, saying that his new family has made him soft. And Boba says, no, it has made me strong. Now, not everyone will want us to act this way. There's a reason Jesus was killed. There's a reason that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was killed, along with so many others in the fight for justice that have been struck down. But if we want to fight the power structures that hold us down collectively, the real enemy, then this is the way. When we stand together as humans equal in each other's eyes, instead of fighting with each other, the chance for redemption becomes an actual possibility. We can then extend that to others, and instead of a cycle of violence and oppression, we create a cycle of love and grace that continuously replenishes itself. May we remember the grace that has been extended to us and pour that grace out to others. The results may surprise us. Amen.